Good afternoon, all. Almost started the first stream of 2026. Muted, but I caught it at the last moment. We are drinkers with technical problems, no more. Welcome in, good evening to Calco, Base Truther, to Sloth, Brian Havoc, Jukester, Chief Paranoid Officer, Monster AV, Citizen Ninja, Viper Leo, Stunner, and everyone else who is lurking. Good to see you all. Sorry, it's been a bit of a late start. We are over halfway now through January before I managed to pull my finger out and actually put a stream. There's reasons behind it. They're all very boring, so we won't go into them. But needless to say, I know there's been a bit of a content drought from DGP at the moment, and the stream was late to start this year, but we are going to build up slowly but surely. There will be regular content, hopefully by about halfway through the year, and by regular I mean, with any luck, weekly. That'd be nice, right? The kind of big news, I guess, is that having been home for the holidays for about 2 weeks, I went down with the intention of having like a minimal stress thing. Turns out I might be buying a house, so somewhere in this year I will likely be shifting location for a while. So when that happens, when we know when that is, I shall let you all know. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit hectic, but there we go. I hope you've all had a great end of year. That 2026 has started off nicely for you. That would be good. But today we're going to talk through some of the stuff that's happened over Christmas and beginning of this year, including, crazily, 4.6 already at Always PTU. Did not have that on my Christmas card list for this year. Yeah, and we're going to look through all that sort of news, and we're going to have a talk about what I think may be happening this year with Star Citizen, a little bit more specific than was on AstroPub stream. If you guys saw that, then great. If that's why that's brought you here, then even better. But yeah, so I basically had some time to think about it afterwards, and I've kind of crystallized a couple of things that I think might be happening this year. And we'll be talking all about that too. You know that because it's the title of the stream. So there we go. I've been running my camera for about an hour, so hopefully we won't have freezes. If there are freezes, I'm really sorry, because it will inevitably freeze at the point at which my face is horrifically frozen in some god-awful pose. That's my bad, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. If it does, just let me know in chat, and hopefully I'll reset it. But I think we are sans problems. The only thing that might disrupt the stream is I started the washing up machine, the washer, a little while ago. So you might just hear that, and if it is, let me know, and I'll try and play with some levels and not annoy you with the sounds of my laundry. But there we go. Hope you guys. Has anyone got had anything special over Christmas? Like, I know this is hopefully this is the last conversation you'll have about Christmas. Anyone get anything exciting? Anyone do anything exciting? Like, noteworthy? Want to talk about it? Anyone got any hilariously awful Christmas dinner stories? I'd be interested to know. Wooter, Shinobi Trip, welcome in, guys. Citizen Ninja, hello. Hopefully, I think that's pretty much everyone that said hello. If not, if I have missed you, then I do apologise. But we will scoop over, and I will have a look at some of the roadmap roundup stuff while you are busy typing out your crazy stories. But let's start the year on the 18th of January. Let's start the year the right way. Let me do this. Today's stream is not sponsored by Stowford Press Cider. Cheers. I know I haven't been drinking much on stream or at all recently, but here's to you guys. Here's for making my 2025 an awful lot of fun, and long may it continue. Cheers, guys. Sloss had a chill Christmas, got socks and got drunk with some friends, so a bit of good time. Do you know what? As I march inevitably towards my grey years, I'm becoming more and more appreciative of just how important times like that is. So there we go. Brought in the new year with $2,000 in vehicle repairs. Truther, that sounds awful. I'm sorry you've had that. That sounds rubbish as a rubbish thing on a rubbish day. But let's scoot across. I'm incredibly washed out this side, aren't I, when I look that way? I'll muck around with the diffuser on that in a bit. Right, here we go then. Let's get off my face. That's what she said. To the roadmap roundup. Let's have a look at what's going on this year in 4.6. I got my nephew a poster-sized photo of me and Perseus flying by Levski in game for Christmas. He absolutely loved it. My brother hated it because now he wants to play so bad. Nice. I like the way you I like the way you've done that. It's sometimes, modern problems require modern solutions. I like your thinking. Where's my Squadron 42? Another delay, right? That's about the only thing they stay on track with is delays. Anthony Vasquez, welcome in. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, so we'll talk about that in just a little while. I'm going to let the stream populate a bit because it's the title of the stream, and if you get it all out of the way in like the first 15 minutes, it'll probably take longer. But, then people come in and then you just end up like rehashing the same conversation every single time. So, let's have a look very quickly at the roadmap roundup. Something that I was quite surprised to see at the top of this list. Something I don't think they've talked about much, or if they have, I completely missed it. So, I am talking, of course, about LAMP, the cockpit light amplification, implementing light amplification on the canopies of a limited set of vehicles, allowing players to more easily navigate the verse in low light conditions, with more ships to be supported in the future. This is effectively light amplification is a form of night vision, so it's basically taking the available light and amplifying it. It's not the same as like infrared or anything like that. It's not heat sources, but it is how a lot of modern night vision goggles work. They're just amplifying light, which means they are still next to useless in zero light conditions. So let's say, for example, you're underground in a cave system, with no lights on at all. Light amplification can amplify what isn't there, but hopefully, obviously, this is not going to be as technical a system as that. So, yeah, cockpit light amplification definitely needed. It'll stop us spamming scan, possibly. This is hopefully good news. Clearing the air. This looks like this is going to be the patch story for 4.6, implementing a system-wide crisis on Nevsky, built up around the Molina mold outbreak. So, you can imagine here we're going to have to get supplies to deal with it, cleaning supplies. Maybe this is an intentional thing that's going on, and a build up to kind of like the instance content within Levski itself. So yeah, exciting. Hauling, courier, resource gathering, kill ship. Why are we killing ships? Because of mold. I don't know. Recover cargo, station escort, and defend ship missions. Exciting stuff. New resource gathering missions. So implement an expanded list of missions for our resource gathering archetype. Find, gather, deliver raw or refined mineral ores or salvageable ship pieces for a variety of corporations. Salvageable ship pieces sounds fun. But yes, there you go. RMC, structural materials, that sort of stuff. Whether that means components, I doubt it this early on, but maybe, I don't know. We're getting it as loot now, right? So there's that. Widget, welcome in, buddy. Good to see you, my friend. Happy New Year to you too. Took over 6 years of begging to get LAMP to finally get added to most ships now, 4.6. Wooter, that's why I'm so excited. I haven't yet tried PTU. I've been busy today. But yes, if anyone has tried it, let us know in chat. We can have a look, and maybe, just maybe, if everything holds up, I might. Oh no, I can't. I can't do PTU. I haven't downloaded it yet, and I'm not going to download that on stream because that's just asking for trouble, right? But we'll have a play and see what it thinks. Whatever helps cut down on my need to spam the radar ping, I'm in for. Says Sloth. Yeah, absolutely. Kelto ship supply kiosks. So this is kiosks with ship supplies that will be close to hangars. I don't think they'll be in them. But it's at major cities. So basically, this will be like at the spaceport, giving things like fuses and fire extinguishers we expect. So there you go. Quick access to engineering tools and essential provisions. So maybe drink and food as well, but certainly things like repair tools, multi-tools, and the Cambio light kind of canisters or Cambio canisters. You would assume full, right? Just like a mag. So there we go. And then, yeah, updating visual material and texture for the following weapons and equipments. Bearing at P4AR, the FS9, P6LR, Greycat Maxiv Tractor Beam, and the Cambio SRT, Cure Life Paramedical Device, and the Ripper SMG, which is a bit of a shame, because I'm quite enjoying the SMG at the moment, the Bearing SMG, the P8SC. So I would have liked to have seen that there, but that's okay. I can wait. It'll be fine. Like visual refactors, they're such a whatever sort of bagger. But there we go. That's what 40.6 is looking like at the moment. It's no real surprise, that I was about to say it's no real surprise, really. That would have been dumb, wouldn't it? It's no real surprise that it's light, given how fast that it has gone to PTU. So it was always going to be a bit feature light, we think, but that is pretty much now, we think. So, oh god, I've clicked the wrong one. I looked Cortac, I was like, what have I missed? So there's the cockpit light amplification. It's really hard to see what it's showing there when you've got a black and white picture. Thanks, CRG. But yes, I'm sure we'll get some info on that. Locations, Kelto supply kiosks. Yep, so same sort of thing you see in Horizon. So hopefully a little bit easier. Although I kind of hope that it's not going to be like we're just pandering to people who want to do stuff really quickly. I think part of Star Citizen, especially for like the exploration people, probably the combat people as well, is making sure you've got the right loadout, you've got ammo suppliers on there, you've got kind of med supplies, the paramed stuff, the med gel that goes into the med beds, armor, weapons, all that stuff if you're going to respawn on your ship. All that, I think, speaks to the complexity of the sim that was pitched at Star Citizen. We've had it quite arcadey recently, and I hope this isn't kind of the pandering to that. But, that you're still going to have to load it manually, so there's that. Missions and events, clearing the air, unsurprisingly, resource gathering missions, unsurprisingly, and the visual refactor. Fine. Nothing there much kind of stands out, really, other than cockpit light amplification and now knowing what the next patch is going to contain in terms of storyline stuff. That's it. And the lack of comments in here is kind of like where I'm going with this, right? What I'm hoping is there's either some stealth stuff in here, or what we're seeing is stabilization after the slightly wobbly patch that came out at Christmas, right? Engineering seems to have caused a couple of issues. I mean, I tried to get on Saturday afternoon, and it was just pointless. I got to the stage where all I was trying to do was equip stuff in my hangar. Couldn't put the armor on. Once the armor was on, I couldn't get it off. All that sort of stuff. It was taking forever for my inventory to load, and this is the one close to me. So, you guys know I've got a fairly decent, I got 1,000 mbps internet connection. So it's not an internet speed thing, it's the server struggling thing on a peak day. So hopefully a little bit more stability coming in with 4.6. And again, if anyone's kind of had a go, that would be great. Star says, yesterday was pretty rough all round for many people as I understand it. Yes, that is my understanding as well. It's that sort of thing. And hopefully these will continue to peter out as we continue the road towards 1.0. Have you seen the rewards for the Clean Air event? I haven't, Widget. If you want to link them to me in Discord, we can take a look, but I haven't seen that yet. Okay, so something else that's coming out then, subscriber promotions. Normally, I kind of gloss over this, but I think this actually has caused quite a stir in the verse, because these were seen some time ago, and now this is all very exciting to people. So there we go. The Azrael helmet and the Azrael ruby, and that's that. And then ships of the month. No great surprise. Saber all across the board. Ta-da. And then discounts and all that good stuff. So yeah, subscriber promotions. There we go. Some people really liking it. I was lucky enough. I got gifted some, but again, it's kind of a helmet thing, so it is what it is, right? And then this one. This is kind of interesting. So I like what they've said here, so I'm going to read it out. Forgive me for being like a bit of a kind of story time with badges, but here we go. As we move through 2026, Star Citizen is evolving, not just in what we deliver, but in how we deliver it. Alongside upcoming changes to patch scheduling that we will talk about in more detail soon, we are also starting to roll out smaller, targeted pieces of content that can go live without waiting for a full patch. Two things to take into account from that, just for a moment, just to bear in mind. Number one, changes to patch scheduling that we will talk about in more detail soon. Number 2, smaller targeted pieces of content that can go live without waiting for a full patch. Pricing Surge is the first of these. The goal is to create short-term, high-impact opportunities in the live universe that react to what is happening in the verse. Give players new ways to engage, and let us adjust and iterate faster based on how you play. So that's great. The new ways to play thing, they don't seem to be demoing that particularly well at the moment. Basically, the story here is because of a large number of capital ship casualties, there's now a big load of Atlassium, whatever however you want to call it. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's made up. So that's come out, and that basically means that because people have access to this on the market now, that they want other supplies. So for the Devlin, Sap, Scrap, and Salvage, they want Amiyoshi Plague, Altrusia Toxin, and Pitambu. And Brio's Breaker Yard is buying in bulk thermal foam and tungsten. And it basically means you can spend a lot more on there, or you can get a lot more selling this. They'll spend a lot more to buy it off you. So there you go. Profit-seeking traders are encouraged to seek out and discover these prosperous vendors in the verse, but be aware that quantities are limited, and others may be seeking these fortunes in less than favourable ways. So there you go. Vendors offering higher than average prices on a few other commodities that they're able to get their hands on, and that's them there. So there we go. Blamsmith, welcome in, bud. Good to see you. So there you go. Wooter says, the next event you can win by buying stuff at a kiosk, with the next event at 4.6 mining missions are actually a waste of time if you can't deliver the mission assets as a raw ore. Yeah, so I think they said that it was going to be, looking back at that it was raw or refined was the resource stuff, the new resource missions. So it's going to be both. So yeah, there you go. So lots of money, and then this will continue until 4.6. So there we go. You know, again, new ways to engage, not really. We've seen this before. You know, we've had this fun of buying cargo at one place, taking it to another. We've seen the piracy that ensues. You know, I don't think this is bringing anything new, but it is the first iteration. And the fun thing here is it's happening mid-patch. So it wasn't relying on anything else. They've just brought it in, and hey, it's a new way for people to do things. Those that are massively focused on making credits and all that sort of stuff, that's awesome for them, because then they get to go and make credits. For everyone else, it means there's a new focus, so we can go and do other stuff in relative peace. So it's a win-win, I guess. But there you go. That's Pricing Surge running until 4.6 is released, which we can only guess now will be before the end of the month, given we are in open PTU. So there we go. Right. Do you know what? Just before we do this, I'm going to come back to the big screen, and we're going to talk about big feelings. I know I missed the transition. So yeah, it's probably a good time to talk about, you know, what's going on in terms of 2026 and what I'm expecting. Which is, it's kind of an interesting thing, because my first prediction for 2026, the thing that I was most sure about, was that they would likely continue monthly release schedule right up to Squadron 42. Because, you know, you have what we can only hope will be a very polished, given that it's been over 2 years, a very polished game released for single player. When people come across the multiplayer, they're going to expect, you know, something similar. If they come to the dumpster fire that, you know, Star Citizen was at the beginning of 2025, they're just not. That's going to be it. They're going to log in once, and they're going to be like, nope, there'll be a refund, and that will be that. And then that kind of hurts CIG quite considerably, because then they've got to explain to, you know, investors and in their reports and stuff why they've had this money come in and then go out again. Not only that, it obviously harms the long-term kind of viability of the project, because whether people like it or not, these two things are inextricably linked, right? However, as we've just seen, there's going to be a change to the way that patches are released. So, we can only hope that this means continued, whatever the actual release is, continued drive to connect all the systems in the game, so that things feel more like I'm going out into space to do things, rather than I'm doing this one thing in isolation and it will never cross with anything else because I never encounter anything else. And that we continue towards optimization to a point so that it's reasonable and far more reflective of the rig that you're running it on. And also that, you've got the stability as well. Because they seem to be doing really well all the way through 2025 until the Christmas patch. And then it was like, no, CIG, what are you doing? So there we go. Yes, but will the freight elevators work this time, Lember? Good question, well asked, no answer. So yeah, there's that. You have DM'd me, let's have a look. Okay. I will open those later, and I will give spoiler warnings for those that don't want to know. But there we go. Rusty Pigeon, welcome in. Good to see you, my friend. And anyone else that I haven't said hello to yet, which says this is just basically supplier diversion 2, and they're pushing the patch while it's completely broken still. Yeah, so hopefully, we've seen some problems with the freight elevators again, mainly around the logistics centers in Nix, right? So you go to the loot area in the warehouse, and there's all the components there, and you pop like the Vanduul ready meals, the guys in the stasis chambers, and the ship components onto the elevator, and then nothing goes anywhere, and you either have to abandon all the loot you can't carry, or you have, as we've done multiple times, you stick it all on the elevators, the personnel elevators, and carry it out that way, which is just as little fun as it sounds. So yeah, it certainly sounds like that. Anthony says, since they're still building like engineering for Live SC, will they put the tools in Squadron 42, I wonder? And I hope they'll include the other 2 chapters of Squadron 42 all in the same release. So, the idea with, there will be 3 episodes of, so I guess, I think I know what you're getting at here, but just to be clear, each episode is broken into chapters. There are a ridiculous number of chapters in episode 1. Episode 1 is reported to be, according to the letter of the chairman, 35 to 40 hours. Right, so that it's just going to be episode 1. Episode 2 is Behind Enemy Lines, and episode 3, I can't remember what that one was called. Someone will remind me in chat. Major Star Stuff, good to see you, my friend. Intergalactic Tea House in the house. If you like talking about tea or Star Citizen, he's well worth checking out. Go check him out on Twitch. If I get a chance, mate, I will go and find the link to your channel and I will pop it up. But yes, absolutely, go and check him out. And we are hoping very soon to do a podcast style episode talking about Squadron 42 and what we expect. So yeah, loot goblins will always find a way. Exactly that. Yes, we will, because I am definitely one of them. So we've seen multi-tools. So there is a specific military style multi-tool that's in Squadron that won't make it into the verse, or it doesn't look like it's going to make it into the verse. You kind of see it in one of the gameplay demos that they have. This was not the big one that they had. They did a smaller demo a while back, and they showed like the weight-based problem where they had a pulley system and you moved something up onto it, and they were showing you kind of moving pipes and stuff. That is the multi-tool, and it does multiple things at once. I think it does tractor beam and it does repair and all that sort of stuff, which is why it's not coming to Star Citizen, because it's just too much of a like Mary Sue. So there we go. Yeah, so that's coming across. Engineering, I think, is going to be in to an extent. There'll likely be the chances to repair and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure there will be repair-based puzzles, just as there are in like ASD and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure it's going to be far more intricate. As to how much that ports across, I guess it depends on, how much it can affect people's gameplay, both positively and negatively. Does buying the military grade multi-tool, just kind of remove the need, invalidate every other multi-tool and attachment we have, because that probably won't happen. Certainly not in the long term, right? They'll find ways to make everything viable, or at least less, kind of less useless. Coco says, I thought from looking, I don't think they've given a name for episode 3. No, possibly not. I think it was very, very old. If it's probably the original stretch goals and stuff. If it's anywhere. But there we go. So that's what I'm expecting, is that this push for playability, stability, linking the systems together, a little bit more context, these little injections coming through, will continue until Squadron 42 comes out. More on that later. And I think that's reasonable. And actually, one of the things I wanted to say about 2025, if you look at where we are now, so beginning of 2025, we got Pyro, right? And we had what? Underground facilities. We had some distribution centers with not a lot at all to do at them. And we had a couple of other locations and very little to do at them. Since then, look at all the activities we've been given. We've got the Align and Mine, the planetary alignment facilities, and then the orbital laser platforms. We've got Stormbreaker. We've got ASD. We've got remote asteroid bases. We've got the contested zones. We have now the logistics stations, which is the Vanduul stuff. So there's crazy amounts of content and activities to go and do. And what's quite interesting about it is, if you were going to look now, I guess, at doing all those activities back to back to back, that would take the better part of a day to run them all through once, right? I don't mean 24 hours. I mean a reasonable day, right, with waking up and going to sleep and that nonsense. But yeah, so a lot of stuff has been added in a very, very short space of time. And we've seen this, this year we've got things like Rockcracker, we've got the tactical fleet battles, we've got a lot of other things. We've got the instant stuff, Siege of Orison, we've got the Levski Nix kind of air filtration systems, the clean air stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that's coming. And that's a good thing. We were joking. We did a Friday night shenanigans, which we do in the Discord every Friday. Link is in the description below. We did a Friday night shenanigans, and I remember joking, can you imagine just going back to running those bunkers, the same bunkers we've had for years and years and years? I was like, I can't imagine doing anything worse right now. I mean, I hated it when we had to go back there for the fight for Pyro stuff, because they just show the distance between where they were when those were implemented and where they are now. You look at running those bunkers compared to ASD or Stormbreaker or, the logistic stations, their location-based storytelling, the atmosphere, who knew Star Citizen was a horror game, they've done so well. So, you can see this improvement when people say, hey, it's just a glorified tech demo. I mean, it really isn't, right? And you and I know that, but that's quite exciting, I think, that they've done. I'm really hoping at some time this year they have more reasons for us to go back to distribution centres. Well, this is the interesting bit, right? Is everyone during the live stream was banging on at CIG about, you're just spoiling everything, like, where are the surprises? And CIG were like, ho ho ho, we haven't spoiled much. So I would expect whatever the announcement is with regards to patch releases, that's going to reflect some sort of kind of, improved content schedule at least. I might be wrong, but I'm sure if the patches get further apart, we'll just get more in the patches. I think they have to now, with Squadron being on the go. Right, I am just going to very, very quickly. I'm just going to hide that because I'm sure that's distracting. It flashing up every second. That's the video for Squadron. Okay. The private section will be massive, more expensive, but will flexible on what it do and doesn't do. It's the private sector stuff. Yeah. While we're expecting about 2026, I'd just like to note I watched the Captain's Table episode. Oh, awesome widget. I'm glad. Yeah, that was. It's so much easier to appear on someone else's stream where they set the topic and they do the questions and all that sort of stuff. And then you've got awesome people like Serious Fun and Spaced and Astropub to kind of bounce ideas off of. That is so much easier to become involved in than it is to sit here and go, I need to talk and entertain for 2 hours. So, so yeah, there's that. But yeah, I'm just going to pop some more music in the background. There we go. Because my voice is annoying me. There we go. Captain Wolf, welcome in, buddy. Well, YouTube just threw me in here. First time, love the voice, though I dropped a like and a sub. Hope to see you show go. Thank you very much, mate. Which is good, because there's nothing worse than editing videos and hearing your voice back, because you're like, I don't sound like that. I don't sound like that. So, hopefully, it's not too annoying. I hope they release all 3 episodes. It's supposed to be the door into SC. I hope SC will give you a feeling of a solo game, like in Elite Dangerous. I know it's an MMO, but I always hope. So Squadron categorically won't come in 3. Won't be released all at once. You will have Squadron 42 Episode 1, which is 35 to 40 hours, and the remainder will follow. Can you imagine, like, how long you'd have to wait for them to do another 2 Squadron 42s? That hurts my stomach, like, so much. It's just... all I can hear is delays, and it makes me want to cry. We've also got 2 sneak peek images to have a look at in a bit. But, do you know what? We're half an hour in. We've talked a little bit about what I expect with the patches. Let's talk about some easy stuff. Here's the low-hanging fruit. Welcome in, Shadow Girl. Good to see you. Here's the low-hanging fruit, right? I think we're going to see live Vanduul in the verse in FPS by the end of the year. I think we're going to be fighting them. I think it would be... it almost feels like those logistics stations. That bit where you go across and there's the Vanduul bodies, you can loot the metal and the knives and everything. It almost feels like that was built to have live Vanduul running around it as well. So I think live Vanduul by the end of the year, which is why that is in the title, and there we go. I see you. Wooter says, I'd like to make my statement for 2026. It isn't a good one, probably. My statement is that them making the Galaxy this year is disappointing, considering the BMM is more wanted and older in the list. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't disagree, and nothing I say here, Wooter, is designed to say that, you know, you're wrong for feeling like that or whatever. It's always disappointing when a ship that you want isn't coming. I think the when question, obviously I'm not going to give you a date, I don't know, but the when question for the Kraken, sorry, the BMM, is based around the stores. It's based around the shops. It's based around the ability to anchor gear that you place and people can't just pick up and run off with, right? Very much like the lock system they're going to have in base building. So when base building comes in, that's part of that battle, and then the ability to set your own prices in shops and that sort of stuff, and have your own kiosks that you run, that's going to be part of that conversation as well. And until that's done, I just don't think we're going to get it. You know, I don't see the benefit to just having another hauler in the game when one of its key selling points, that whole idea of the market, the bazaar, you know, the room upstairs where everyone goes in and it's like the kind of meeting, the merchantman, very much like the nomadic lifestyle, the kind of Middle East nomadic, Northern African tribes nomadic way of meeting, that, you know, you come and meet and you sit and drink and eat together and then you discuss business, that very kind of stylized. That's what they're going for, right? It's fairly obvious from the images. So whilst I agree with you, I think this is going to persist for a while, and I'd just be braced for that. So yeah, to you too, Anthony. Tell me about like not hearing your voice back. To me, IRL, I sound higher pitched than I do. Hear my voice back, and I have a lower voice, but I can really hear my South African accent. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really hoping we can get the Vanduul pikes. Would love to use them. Yeah, I mean, like every single person, I think, because I mean, I know I did it, and when I joked about it, everyone else in Friday Night Shenanigans said they did it as well. Which is, you saw it was a Vanduul spear in the floor. First thing I did, ran up to it. Can I interact with it? Can I take it? And I'm sure everyone else has done exactly the same thing. answer no, you can't. But yeah, that was good fun. Um, so yeah. If you're talking about gameplay, please stop. They also added the Drake Clipper while crafting isn't out yet. Um, yeah, I mean, so the question there is then why is the BMM not out? Yeah, and this is the bit where it doesn't work. Is BMM huge amounts of money, all that sort of stuff. The whole point of the Banu Merchantman is that you are selling and buying stuff on it, right? You've got yes, it cargo hauls, but that's not the whole feature list. There's so much more to do with it. The Clipper you can run around as and use as a solo ship in pretty much its intent. I'm not saying I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that I wouldn't expect it to be out. I could be talking crap. The first ship that they release could be the BMM. It could be like surprise, but I don't think it's going to happen. There we go. Space Saga, welcome in, buddy. So yeah, on the same point you made about the BMM, how likely will we get Kraken Privateer? Don't know. I can't remember seeing the Privateer mentioned. It was just the Kraken, right? In the progress reports. So I think it's more likely to be the Kraken, right? So there's that. True, but it's not BMM specific. I just don't like making another RSO ship as the big ship for this year. Yeah. So I think what we can take from that is, refining is likely to be in, even if it is for the moment just a copy of the refining that we've got at stations. And I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. I don't think I'm saying anything there that's going to be a surprise, because crafting is going to require refining, right? Because they're talking about different quality materials, and that's going to require a revisit of the whole thing. So I think we'll see that to a certain extent. I'd love to see a solo version of the Zeus, like the Clipper, but as an RSI ship. Yeah, I mean, they're talking about competitors, aren't they? So when they talked about the ship matrix, they say, small, medium, large, capital, and then they've got down the columns, they've got, like fighter, fighter bomber, light fighter, medium fighter, heavy fighter, all the fighters, but they're also talking about cargo, salvage, mining, exploration, data running, all of the iterations. They've said that they don't even have a ship in each column, in each square yet, let alone the fact that they want competitors later on. And we know they're going to do competitors because the fighter market is fucking full of it, right? It's all we've got is fighters. So there we go. So yeah, that will likely, we'll see. An exact. I forget what they call it. What do they call it? The solo ship, the Clipper. They gave it a type, didn't they? It was like the whatever it is, the Wanderer or something. It was something to indicate that it was a one person, just go out and live in it sort of thing. We're going to see more of those. Whatever that name is, I can't remember. If the Galaxy is coming this year, says Sloth, it has the refining model, so it would make a lot of sense if we get refining working sometime before then. Generalist, thank you, Space Saga. Yeah, exactly that. So it's the Generalist ship. Yeah, thanks, sir. So yeah. Right. Okay, now I've responded to that. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments, either agreeing or disagreeing or whatever in chat, and that's fine. But I'm going to go for the big one for me. I think likely crafting is going to be an end of the year thing. Right, I think it's going to be a Christmas release. That's going to be my guess. I think that's the delay. I think they're probably hoping they can get it in sooner. I think it's going to be right up to the wire again at Christmas, and then we'll see it again in we'll see it fixed in the first couple of months of 2027. Bunch of reasons I say that. Gameplay loops are never on time ever. And we don't know when they were targeting for, but I'm going to guess it's right at the end of this year, if it's this year at all. They've got the work to do on Squadron 42. They've got all that polishing work to do and stuff, and I think it's fair to say that from any sort of common sense perspective, having what's in the game working, functional, better optimized and more stable is better than sacrificing that time to get a new gameplay loop in. So my guest with it. Crafting in Castra, that's bold. Widget, stop. I'm not playing that game anymore. I mean, look, if what we're going to say is what happened this year, which is we get Castra Light. So we get the space, and we get a couple of stations that are cookie cutters from what we've had before, and we get maybe a planet. Yeah, sure. Castra this year, why not? Why not? If we're talking about what I was expecting them to do, which was get a full release like Pyro, where you go in and the system's pre-built, no way. That's not happening this year. In fact, I think we'll be hard pressed to have Nyx built out by the end of the year. But there we go. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason they can't. I guess if they maybe if you can expand, if you can take 3 normal shards, right, with however many servers per shard, and then expand them out slightly so that you can split half the player base of one shard over the other 2 and do less than 50% extra servers to those 2 shards to achieve it. In other words, same number of players, fewer servers because you're spreading them across fewer shards, but the shards are larger. If they can achieve that, that would be a good reason for them to do so. As I said on Astropub's stream on the captain's table, I can't see any other reason for them rushing Castra in. The reason we waited for so much with Pyro was because Pyro, before Pyro there was server meshing, so there wasn't server meshing. There's loads of stuff that they couldn't do because of entity counts. And those of us that have been here for a while remember things like Xenothreat, where they had to drop how many players were on the server because Xenothreat populated so many entities, they had to drop the player count. Because, if they can do that with Castra and spread people across 3 systems, or three systems, like I said, at fewer servers to accommodate the same amount of players, that reduces their costs. And that's a valid reason for them to do it. And at the moment, that's the only reason I can think that they would do it. I can't see what else. Why would you not finish Nyx before releasing Castra? It doesn't bring anything. It's not like there's going to be something in Castra that you can only do in Castra, right? There's going to be things that will be put into the other systems that may later then be put into other systems. But the priority at the moment in an alpha is testing the system. It's not making the systems completely historically accurate, as they've proved, because Nyx got released with Levski and an asteroid belt. Like, that's not the system. So I think Castra's, if they're going to go partial systems again, but yeah, I think. Yeah, I've got to agree with Wouter. They haven't even released Nyx properly, and we're already talking about Castra. I think they'll just be able to say they've done a system a year, possibly. Although I think what's going to come out of that is they're going to realise that doing a system a year means they've got to massively double, triple, even quadruple their pace on all the other systems to get everything else done by the time they've got 5 systems in for 1.0. Just going to go there. So there's that. Avi says, I could see that. In a literal sense, they released the system, but it's far from a complete finished system, just a bare bones one, which is kind of a cheat, right? They haven't released the system, they've released another space. It's not a system. It's a planet, or it's an asteroid base, and there's a couple of things. I know this is what you're saying, I'm not saying you're not. It just feels a little bit cheap. Feels a little bit So there we go. Wouter says, the only thing I really want with crafting is special qualities like rare items in the World of Warcraft, where Norman's green, rare is blue, super is rare, and purple is ultra rare with bonuses. Yeah, so they've talked about there are going to be different qualities, and then you choose kind of like where you assign your higher quality materials, and you actually see how that's going to edit. So hopefully, none of this RNG, well, just keep crafting until you get the bonuses you want. You can actually sit there and figure out how it's going to affect, right? It's the future, for God's sake. there's science involved, we should be able to plan these things out rather than just, hey, just make 40 of them before you get the one that you want, because that would be crap. They're openly pushing dynamic server meshing this year, which could just solve that problem entirely. Yeah, I mean, dynamic server meshing is still, for me, the unicorn of Star Citizen. The ability to spin up other servers to dynamically take the load and processing away from other servers and then recognize when. I'm not saying they can't do it, I'm saying that's a believe it when I see it sort of thing. But Timber, welcome in. Good to see you, buddy. Kasha should be high sec, being an ex-Navy facility. Yeah. So, but again, I don't know. What will make it high sec is stuff that we don't have in the game yet, which is NPC advocacy and UE Navy patrols coming to help you when you get attacked, or coming to stop you if you're pirating someone else. So, and that's something that you don't need an entire new system to implement that. They can do that in Stanton. They can prove it, because all they need to do to make it high sec is increase the number and the complexity of the AIs that are spawned to help people. So you get more elite security patrols, and you get more of them to make it high sec versus, hey, if you get attacked in Castra, they'll be with you in like 3 minutes. If you get attacked in Stanton, you've got like 10. You see what I mean? So there we go. JPG, hello, mate. Good to see you. Happy New Year to you, sir. You too, mate. Parallel Officer says they likely did so they could reclaim claimed 3 systems and 2 in 1 year. Do you know what? The letter from the chairman, Chris Roberts' comment on that kind of felt a little bit like that, right? And don't get me wrong, there's so much to be hopeful about in his letter to the chairman. It's a really positive message. I don't think there are any negatives. It just did feel a little bit like a flex. And maybe a slightly overstated one. But there we go. Right, I'm going to do this now. And I'm going to put it on in the background so we can talk about this. Basically, so I'm a smaller target for you things to throw things at. I do not recommend throwing things at your screen. Let's talk about this. Right, I feel like I should have some rousing music on in the background. But for right now, maybe I can find some rousing music. That'll be fun, wouldn't it? Let's see. Can I find a? Let's put this one on. This will be fun. Oh, that's not what I meant to do at all. Oh no! There we go. So, no audio. I know there's no audio. I'm not. It's just the music. Okay. Wooter, good to see you, buddy. Take it easy, and I'll see you next week, my friend. Squadron 42. Oh, God. Squadron 42. I was thinking about this today. I was thinking about this quite a bit, actually. Squadron 42 website. The reason, like, I'm not going to go back to it. There's no point. But you saw, just as I kind of came back to the big face picture, that I had the Squadron 42 website up on RSI, right? And the reason I had that is if you scroll past all the crap towards the bottom, it still says launches 2026. We've had the letter from the chairman bit saying that they're going to have a shorter than normal kind of marketing campaign. That's going to be due in huge part to the incredible success of both the Squadron 42 demo last year. Year before last. Oh my God, how cool was that? And then everything that's happened since. Other channels have like cut the gameplay out and just put the cinematics down, and that's got over, I think Hybrid Audios is up to about 2 million views now, somewhere in that region. Anyway, right, I'm going to cut that volume down a bit. This is from the original Kickstarter video, by the way. And we'll have a look at that as well, because oh my God, how far this game has come. But yeah, Trog, welcome in, buddy. Well, we're just about to come to this. So I've been thinking about this year. Is Squadron 42 going to be with us? And I would not be drawn on an answer. I just, on the Captain's Table podcast, I basically just said, hey, like, if they don't, then this is what's going to happen. I basically gave the ramifications rather than committed. And what I thought about today was, if ever there was a point to show confidence and and show a little bit of unqualified support, probably just before the release of their first finished game, would be a really good time to do it. So I'm going to say that I think we'll see Squadron 42 this year. I'm fully aware that there are delays. I'm fully aware that all that sort of stuff. I know you've just clipped that, you sods. But I think we will. I think we'll see it. I think they've had so many points to bang out, and I think the best place they could have banged out would have been Christmas last year. Would have been Christmas 2025, when they could have turned around and said, hey, I don't think it's happening, and not doing it in the year, giving people like Christmas to digest it before we arrived in 2026, rather than waiting for the year of release and then going, no, we can't make it, right? It's not multiplayer. It's not going to be like they're going to have surprise back-end bugs, or they're going to suddenly stress test it and realize that it's screwed. It's a single player, and the polish is ongoing and all that sort of stuff. I think it's likely we'll see it this year. I think we'll get it, and I also think it's going to be incredible fun. I think there are going to be large periods of us wanting to see the cutscenes, because almost the cutscenes are the best part. But I think it's going to be good fun. So that's my prediction. I think we will see Squadron 42 this year, and I'm going to regret saying that in 6 or 7 months or so. But no, I think we're going to get it, and I legitimately cannot wait. I cannot wait to play this, because it's going to allow us to experience the Star Citizen universe in a way that Star Citizen cannot manage. Star Citizen cannot put you in the military side of of the UEE. You can join a milsim org, but trust me, from someone who joined milsim armor, sometimes the payoff isn't worth it, right? And I'm not slighting my milsim org or my milsim group at all. 77th JSOC are great at milsim. They are top of the line milsim players. They strike that beautiful balance between feeling like you're in a military organization and still making it fun. So I'm not having a go at anyone that does milsim, because I do it myself, or I did it myself. But yeah, I think there's that. There is the question that Shadow Girl raises, just glancing over, which is a really good question. You can absolutely understand, right? You and I can see Chris Roberts would be absolutely justified in wanting this, the game he's always wanted to have made, win Game of the Year. And I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how good this game is, it is not going to pip GTA 6 if it's released in the same year. And people are going to be like, aha, gotcha, because it's releasing in 2026. It is. But it has to hit a certain release window for the Game Awards. And if you look, it is right on where the window changes. So it could be in either year, depending on exactly what date it releases and exactly what date Game Awards this year set for their cutoff for games released. And I think Chris might try and dodge it. Potentially. I think it's more likely that he won't want to launch after it. Because that's a hell of a shadow to fight. But there we go. Temple says Squadron 42 was the whole reason I pledged at Kickstarter. Squadron 42 in Q2, said Lucic Strike. Welcome in, buddy. Good to see you. That's brave. That's brave. Arcade Alchemist, welcome in. Good to see you. Hope you had a good Christmas and New Year. And to anyone else that I haven't said hello to, good to see you all. Yeah, so I've got to go back through comments to see how bad I'm wrong. So there we go. So many people doing their advertising for them for Squadron 42. Not much reason for them to go too wild with advertising officially until they get the official date. Exactly that. And I think, given some of the gameplay and some of what they're doing, I mean, like, they had me at Gary Oldman doing a speech, right? And I might even switch the audio on for that bit, because holy cow, Gary Oldman doing a speech, right, in a game is just... Gary Oldman doing a speech in the bathroom is incredible. Doing it in a game is just is chef's kiss, right? So yeah, there's that. The other thing that I quite like from this is if you saw how the helmet switched on, and then the kind of display elements spread out. I think all that's coming to Squadron 40. So sorry, to Star Citizen. It's just going to take a while, right? The other thing is, I'm just going to say this here. You see at the top right, it says report to assigned turret. Follow Marcus optional. Bear that in mind when you watch the rescue. Gillian Anderson rescue Captain McLaren, because I don't think it says optional. I think you've got to rescue it. Because some people are saying, hey, it's going to be a choice. I don't think it is. But complete aside there. Griefus, welcome in. Good to see you. A Q2 prediction isn't as brave as you think. It's based on objective assessment. Yeah, I mean, so a while ago, Chris talked about a 6-month release window that games traditionally would you get about 6 months warning. I think he might have been hinting. It's just a guess, but I think he might have been hinting. So yeah, Needless, welcome in, buddy. No marketing ramp up for that. So there's going to be minimal, I think, marketing ramp up. The thing to remember is there's always people who are picking up PCs for the first time, right? It's not. Bearing in mind, we saw this back in 2024, end of, right? So we've had, by the time it comes out, even if Q2 is right, you're talking over 18 months. That means 18 months of people getting their first PC, 18 months of people becoming interested in gaming because they're getting to that age. I think, there's still reason to run marketing, as people are quite rightly saying. It's just not going to be huge. But going back to what I was saying about Game of the Year, I think Chris will try for Game of the Year if it can. Will he delay Squadron 42 to have a run at Game of the Year? I'm guessing not. The big question I have about Squadron 42 is this sort of game still popular? The run on rails, yes, there's different ways to complete things, but because you're in the military, like you said, it's not like The Witcher where you can complete things in your order and choose what to do and what not to do and all those sorts of good things, right? You can't do that in the military, and that's what they've said here, is that's why you can't run off and do an open world way of solving things, because you're in the military, because you have objectives, you're giving targets. There's the whole insubordination thing if you don't do what you're ordered. So yeah, there's that. Is that still a game that people are wanting to play? Because, I mean, Modern Warfare did very well with that, right? You had the missions and you still ran through a bunch of checkpoints. It wasn't massively different. And that seemed very popular, but that was only 7 hours. Are people going to stand that for 35 hours? I don't know. I really don't know. So there we go. 6 or 7 months, says Chaos Score. Welcome in, buddy. Good to see you. I think if we go for the first week in October, says Space Saga. Well, I mean, you said yes to Nick's and I said no, so I probably need to listen to you on that. Right, I'm just going to, kind of wet the whistle, as it were. Omen's speech is amazing, and we're coming right up on it. So I will pause to play that, because holy cow, Gary Oldman. I stand to attention, and I'm not talking about standing up. So yeah, it's way too much of a visual spectacle for people to ignore, even if it's on rails, says Needless. Do you know what? Hopefully I'm saying that right. Is it Needless? Needless? Sorry, buddy, if I'm butchering that. But yeah, I agree. It's incredibly visually stunning. And the other thing is, I think with this, it's so not finished. If you look at the fighters, they don't look like they're moving naturally. They look like they are literally running on rails. They look like kind of roller coaster cars going around tracks. That's all going to be changed. I think they're going to be much better at it. If you watch the intro sequence with the 2 Hornets, that's much more natural movement, and I think they'll do that to the big fighter scenes will reflect that much more than they do at the moment. I think it's also going to see a huge amount more fire coming from these guys when they're ordered to open fire. But I think we're just about to get to the speech section, so stand by.
About time.
Shut up. I'm sorry. I know we've done this a lot on the stream, but I'm not sorry. You can put up with it.
This is Admiral Bishop.
months now, we have faced an elusive enemy determined to see
Just gonna turn it up a second.
Every human with it. There have been battles. There have been losses. Each and every one of you has proven yourself time and again, but today I must ask for more.
I think this is Pedro, whoever it is. The music.
We fight one last battle. Advanced recon indicates the entire Vanduul fleet has just entered the system. This means a kingship is headed our way.
Oh, can you not hear it? Do I need to go back?
Now some of you will not survive today, but there will be no time for sorrow. We will have to grieve for them later. Because 2 billion souls in this system hang in the balance.
Major landing zones like
There
this,
should be no
please.
illusions about what we were up against. In the history of the UEE, a kingship has entered human space a handful of times. Battle of Orion, Siege of Tiber, the fall of Caliban. But we are the Second Fleet. History will remember us differently. We will not have to worry about it being kind, because today we will define ourselves through our actions. We will not lose the system. We will not fall back. We will win, because we have to. We fight today. So in 40 years from now, when you're surrounded by everything and everyone you hold dear, and they ask, what did you do in the Battle of Vega? You can look them in the eye and say, I held the line.
Need that on a t-shirt.
Men and women of the Second Fleet, I am proud to stand with you today. Good luck. Bishop out.
Yeah. That. So, yeah, just incredible. Yeah, just mental. Pedro Squadron 42 kids is like Jeff. Yeah, I think it is. You're right. It's just like this sort of kind of human feeling with it and all that sort of stuff. If they can inject that into the game, and you know, there's every reason to believe that Chris will do it. For those that don't know, hey Rescue, yeah, chills, right? Here's the thing with Chris and his legacy, with the Wing Commander legacy, is that Wing Commander was that game that pioneered the idea of your teammates kind of reacting to the choices that you make and figuring out, you know, kind of whether they like you as a result and how to act. And it had some change, it had some impact on the final battle. You know, your romantic attachment in one of the games, you know, changed how the final battle played out for you in terms of, were you fully supplied, you know, how long did the fighters stay for you and all that sort of stuff. So that human element, Chris is historically very good at bringing into games, and we saw that there, right? And you know, his experience as someone, you know, as a producer in films, Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, for example, really does stand him in good stead for this. And he's got some of the military humor down to a T as well, because that bit where Mark Strong looks at the kingship and goes, thought it would be bigger. That's a very military thing to say, right? It's that kind of humor at it. He says Bishop out because he had trouble saying Admiral Bishop. Yeah. It does say it at the start, but it was a tongue twister for him. Yeah, so he kept saying Admirable Bishop is what he kept saying. He could say Admiral Tom, Admiral Gary, Admiral Bob, but when it came to Bishop, it was Admirable Bishop. He just couldn't do it. So I think I've got a short on that somewhere, if you want to go and have a look. So yeah, we answered the call, then we held the line. Now we're calling them back. Nice. Exactly that. So yeah, I think we will. I'd like to think we'll see this year. I kind of like this bit. This is not the bit that I'm talking about with the ships moving. The fact that it all feels like it's kind of hanging there, I think, is a very cinematic, very kind of intimidating feel to them. That they're all just kind of coasting in, because he says they must be waiting for something, alluding to the fact they're not moving. So what are they waiting for? And he goes, that. So this bit here.
What are they waiting for?
That. not that I've seen this a couple times or anything, But yeah, so that's kind of. But you'll see in a bit what I'm talking about. But I think we will. I think it will be Squadron 42. I think we'll hopefully see live Vanduul. Possibly not with the takedown attacks that you saw in Squadron, because I seem to remember somewhere them saying that they weren't necessarily keen on that happening. But, in the verse. But, I said but, I think we'll see some Vanduul FPS. I'm hoping we will anyway. Because we've now got the models in the game. I thought it'd be bigger. But yeah. So just if this is what the game plays like and looks like, and how the stories, kind of come across and make you feel all the way through. I've said multiple times, and I'm sorry you've heard this before, but holy, sitting in the room watching this live was incredible, even if it did crash a bunch of times. All right. So, yeah. I would still love to board a kingship and try and take it out from the inside, and the PU would be insane and fun AF. Maybe that's what Pitchfork ends up doing at the end of beta, before 1.0. So yeah. At some point, I'm going to have to kind of review this as a military person, because as ex-military, I'm looking at this going, yeah, there's some things here that don't make sense. But I don't want to spoil the fun. I don't want to spoil the emotion. I don't want to be the actually guy at the beginning of the year, right? We'll give it a couple of streams, and then I'll crap on everybody's parade. X to doubt a full kingship interior, very possibly. So I'll just turn this up slightly so you can kind of hear it going on in the background. But this bit's pretty good, the way these move, and then it kind of... The real question is, Operation Pitchfork going to be limited to Mark 1s? Good question, well asked. Non-related question, in the Tactical Strike Goods video that Vanduul's ship at the end, do you think it's a destroyer or a cruise equivalent? I'll show you which one I think it is. This bit's great. The weight of fire coming out here is awesome. It's this bit where it starts to feel like it's running on rails. You're not really seeing dynamic movement, right? Here it starts to feel a bit kind of jilted, right? Even in the actual combat bit, it doesn't feel quite like there. This is not how you would expect to see fighters and stuff move. There's very little transfer of vectors, like there is when you fly decoupled or even coupled, right? There's very little that. They just kind of like turn on a dime. They're more like cars in space, right? 3D cars in space. To be fair, this is a tutorial. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But I think it was so visually jarring as to see that, to be able to see that. You can still have that effect. You just do it slower for a tutorial, right? You can see here there's kind of not a lot of dynamic movement with them. Lacking a bit of 3D flight. Exactly that, Rescue. Exactly that. Hope you're doing well, by the way. I hope you had a good Christmas and New Year. Yeah, so there's that. Hopefully, Squadron 42 by the end of next year. Right, so whilst that's going on in the background, I just want to show you a couple of things. So there were there were 2 sneak peeks shared since Christmas. So we'll look at them both in order. The first one is, well, this is the most recent one. Okay, so this was shared this weekend, I think. All right, is that. Not much to see. It's kind of an it looks like it's Nix. It looks like it's alluding up to the kind of clean air and all that sort of stuff initiatives. So there's not much here that are like, oh my god, to see. And for a moment, I thought that thing at the end of the corridor was possibly something, and it's not. So if we zoom right in on that, okay, you can kind of see there it's just a support with kind of like a rock formation behind it. Because I was like, oh, what's that? And it turns out it's actually nothing. So, whatever. The second thing that we had shown to us was this. Okay, and that looks, I agree with people, that looks very much like the interior of the Apollo, except this might be the Hermes. Right? With a tractor beam here, with a rail system overhead, so the ability to bring things in and out and store them inside. And, it kind of looks like here on both sides, given how close this looks like it's part of the tractor beam. On each side here, the cargo areas, so instead of the walls, it'll just be open and that'll be cargo space. And then maybe the central walkway, as indicated, will be thinner to allow more cargo. But this possibly the cargo thing. So yeah. After years and years of backing this project for more than I care to admit, says Jukester, I hope it doesn't disappoint. No, and I think this is it, right? I don't think it will. I think, there might be some debate about the running on rails versus open world sort of thing, especially given the fact that they're building Squadron 42 out there. I think, Star Citizen out like that. I think a couple people might ask, well, why wouldn't you give us the option to do that in the verse? And that's the beautiful thing later on, right? Is once they've got Squadron 42 episodes 1, 2, and 3 out the way, at that point they can absolutely look at maybe, getting I don't know, doing some Star Citizen stories like the Star Wars stories, and doing some more open world, smuggler kind of Han Solo-esque stuff. There's so much they can do with it. They've got an entire universe to play with, right? And 100 systems to muck around. How long do you think it will take to make episode 2? Right, so what I said, Rufus, about on the captain's table, if you were there, still stands. If you weren't, it's basically this, which is, I think the speed at which they make episode 2 will be directly proportional to how much money they make with Squadron 42 episode 1. If it makes a metric crap ton of money, actual figure, if it makes a metric crap ton of money, episode 2 might come quicker. If it does okay, I think we'll wait, a couple of years, and the focus will shift to Star Citizen for a while. Because let's face it, Star Citizen is how they funded the entire project to date. And we're going to hit $1 billion this year, even if Squadron doesn't come out. So it would be ludicrous for them to abandon it. And then, if it does exceptionally poorly, episode 2 might be delayed for some time, even indefinitely. Not that I expect it to do that, but I think that's it. So yeah. Does this swarm strategy make sense? So yeah, the fight in the I'll close those. But so the swarm, it's just going to take the video a moment to catch up. There you go. The idea of sending fighters out ahead of the fleet is to intercept other boarding craft and torpedo bombers, right? It's also to create a corridor for your own boarding craft and torpedo bombers, right? Yeah, they don't have boarding craft, but the Vanduul do. And we see that with Squadron 42, right? What it was actually a particular tactic that they were like, hey, let's go. But you know, the other thing is think of the Bengal from its security point of view, right? Why would you open the front of that ship in the middle of a fight? Right? It decreases the security of your capital ship. Of what I would suggest is probably their HVU, their high value unit, or even their MEU, their mission essential unit. You know, it's their flagship. Why would you open the front of that thing? You'd get all your fighters out first. And then you'd send yours forward because their fighters are coming in. And he kind of says, right, there's a point where he says, Gauntlet, come in. I need you to come round and sweep some fighters up on us. And that's what they're doing now, right? And that's where Gillian Anderson, McLaren says, you know, gunners make me proud because they're already having problems with fighters. Yeah, so that basically. Also, it looks cool. So there's that too. Seems to be just a regular cargo ship with a mobile tractor beam. Unfortunately, needless. I think that's what it is. Or needless rather. How long do you think it'll take to make episode two? So I think I've answered that. Like I said, it all depends on its financial success. I think that would be my guess. Boom. Unless, and hear me out, they open the Bengal and there's 200 people with railguns who all fire in unison. Yeah, that's it. That's how they win the battle, right? Bunch of sweaty nerds with railguns. Yeah, why not? Yeah, very interesting. Really interesting kind of. It's right. I'm gonna cut that off now for a bit, just because the flashes are kind of just really distracting me anyway. There you go. There we go. So yeah, there's that. And I think that's where we are, and I think that's what we've got to look forward to this year. I think we're going to get Squadron 42. And then the stuff from CitizenCon Direct. I posed a question on the captain's table, and I want to pose it to you guys. I'm going to write it down because, of course, I didn't prep this in the beforehand, because I only just thought about it. But I'm going to say increase pace of development, but I actually mean sustain pace of development. With another. Just talk quietly amongst yourselves while I'm writing on the board, class. And there's a loaded reason why I'm asking this question. Okay, but let's see. So the question is. Let's do. Oh, of course, I'm one over, and I shouldn't be. There we go. Here we go. There's the question. All right. If it meant increased pace of development, sustained pace of development, would you be okay with another CitizenCon Direct this year? Because I don't know about you guys, right? But watching that CitizenCon Direct, there was so much content. I've seen day-long CitizenCons with less information about what's coming in it than what came in those 2 hours. Right? So previously, Groofus, the one in Manchester, which was the year before 2024, was 1.5 days. The first day was a full day on the Saturday. The second day finished at mid-afternoon-ish, early to mid-afternoon. Timble says yes, mainly because I'm broke this year, so it works out for me. I don't agree. I felt like we got more with a real multi-day CitizenCon. Yeah, and I mean, so I think Manchester was different, right? Manchester 2024 was different. But looking at the other years, even the year where we had the COVID one, where we had like the first glimpse of Pyro when they went down and had to buy the Hadesian artifact and all that sort of stuff, right? That sort of stuff Personally, I like the direct version more, but I've never gone to live. Only the one watched online. Yeah, absolutely. So I've done both, and I think there's absolutely a space for CitizenCon live. I love it. Right, I've been to two now. I've been to both the ones in Manchester, 2019 and 2024, and I love it. What I also love about it is that you go to this place and no one pays 200 quid's worth of ticket plus 400 quid's worth of accommodation plus whatever it costs to get you there plus all the food and drink for the weekend and everything else that it costs them to go there and bitch about it, or if they do, they need to go see someone, right, and get some help. So you just have this untamed positivity for 2 days, and everyone gets to be positive, but without having to constantly go, well, yeah, but delays, well, yeah, but bugs, well, yeah, but stability, well, yeah, but fucking freight elevators, right? You don't have to do any of that because we all know, we've all been there. Like, no, we've all experienced it. So it's great to have that kind of constant positivity. But they have said a number of times that to do CitizenCon Live has a big impact on kind of all the teams because they've got to put the presentations together, they've got to rehearse, they've got to spend all the money for the venue, they've got to do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm sure CitizenCon makes them money, right? I'm under no illusion. CitizenCon makes them a crap ton of money. If it didn't, they wouldn't do it. It's as simple as that. But there's a lot of effort that goes into that. We know there's a content drought around about that point, both in terms of what's going into the game up until the release weekend, also in terms of the the videos, the Inside Star Citizen Lives. So that's why I asked the question. The other reason I asked the question, and I'm being a little bit cheeky here, because hey, Custom, welcome in. You said crafting by the end of the year. What do you mean by that? The full no, their initial. I don't think we're going to be able to craft anything in the game till the end of the year, and I think it will be their stripped down version. So I think what they've talked about initially is that blueprints won't be per account. Everyone will be able to craft the same thing initially, because they talked about it in one of their progress reports. They've got the crafting blueprint system, which will be held centrally, rather than the dynamic updatable one, which will be coming at a later date. So that's what I base that off of. The later date could be by the time crafting comes in. I doubt it, because that requires then all the blueprints in. And oh my god, can you imagine the whinging when people find incredibly rare blueprints and then they wipe? I just don't think that's a battle they want to have. So there we go. Funny enough, space. That's why I ask. I prefer a normal citizen content sloth, but if it helps keep development going smoother and faster, I can accept the direct. And that's it. Apart from money, I don't know what benefit it brings them. That's the problem that I have at the moment. I don't know what benefit Star Citizen is bringing them. So yeah, once Squadron is released and Star Citizen hints 1.0, I hope for a live in person sitcoms. That. Cody Fox, welcome in. Problem is, I don't know if I could trust that it'll actually be increased development. So maybe not increased, but sustained. So when I wrote that, I got too far through it, and it's not great cinema if I'm sat here typing away and not saying anything to you guys because my brain can't do two things at once. I'm a bloke. But what I meant was to not have the dip in development for everyone to come away, because if we're all sat there thinking this only takes them a week to do beforehand, we're kidding ourselves, right? And to then for them, because they've got to polish their own individual chats, and they've got to come out and do it. Everyone's got to be there. It's a much more involved thing. You don't just magic up people who plan everything that goes into it, because you need to know about Star Citizen to do that. The reason I asked that is exactly what Space said. Because if they do a CitizenCon Direct, maybe they have a Squadron 42 launch event. One of the really interesting things was both, or in fact all three, Astropub, Space Tomato, and Serious Fun on the captain's table that I was on 2 weeks ago all said that their biggest fear was Squadron 42 being released at CitizenCon because they're all there. Right? They're not at home streaming it, which we've already kind of said there's a large part of the community doing the advertising for them. I don't think they want to sacrifice all of their biggest streamers and content creators to the event to then go, now you're all here and you're not going home for 3 days. By the way, Squadron 42 is now live. So I don't see them doing that. I think it's gonna happen another way. Or, you know, the option that I don't like, which is streamers will get an advanced copy of the game. Which sucks for everybody else. But there we go. I can see crafting beginning like engineering last year. Very much so. Exactly that. Cody says, CIG's creates us a trust gap and keeps so much hidden from us that it's hard to know anything about how a digital sitcom helps things. Yeah, I mean, you can only go on what they say, right? Which is the reason. One of the reasons they wanted to do sitcom was of a digital one was of the adverse effect. And it's very, very clear, I think, that they will have made much less money from the digital one. It didn't cost anyone anything. They do a digital goodies pack anyway at other, during every sitcom. So yes, they sold that, but they did during every sitcom. They lost money from doing it. So they must have decided that despite some lost revenue, the benefits were better elsewhere, right? We can't really, we hear so much about how the marketing department is the devil and it's all financially driven and they just want to sell JPEG ships. It's really hard then for people to turn around, and I'm not saying anyone here is making that argument, but it is really hard to come back there and say, well, hang on a second, they're doing this because they're lazy. It's like, well, hang on, they're either lazy and don't want the money, or they do want the money and they're churning out stuff. Like, we can't have it both ways. And for it still being coherent. So yeah, I think crafting will be in before the quarter 2, given they're already looking into Evo PTU. Yeah, I mean, look at the gap between Pyro PTU or Pyro Test Branch and Pyro. I think it's going to be a long old time. I'd like CitizenCon Direct to be a little longer. It didn't feel like an event last year. I don't know, Blamsmith. I was so fucking drunk with Daily Noob. I had to watch it again the following day to remind myself of what they said. We got very drunk. Mainly because of that bloody drinking game. We were too good at guessing of what they would say. I remember going literally, so straight downstairs, which means that the fridge in the kitchen is the other side of the door. It's, kind of within 4 steps. And I literally walked into the kitchen, got 2 bottles because of the rate that we were going through, walked back in, and Daily Noob just went, you got to drink 5 times. 5 times they've said stuff. So yeah, that was rough. I could see them releasing the prologue at an event with a set in stone launch date for the game. Possibly. Yeah. Someone asked earlier what you meant by crafting FPS items are also components and chips. So I think they talked about smaller components. So size 1s and FPS weapons, potentially armor. Not ships at the minute. And I think that's probably the most realistic, right? I spoke to Torsten at CitizenCon 2024. He said they are ready to release crafting. I think they needed Vulcan as a priority, and that delayed it. Yeah, that's the bit. I remember Torsten saying that engineering was ready May last year. That he would release it, quote unquote, tomorrow, and it still took 7 months. So what the devs say is ready, or sorry, what the devs versus the management team say. It seems to be 2 very different things at the moment. We will see tomorrow in the playtest how far they are. Yeah, exactly that. I'm still salty they didn't say immersion at all. Yeah, that was a safe bet. I think I'm going to keep that one off because I think they're lulling me into a false sense of security for the next CitizenCon, and all of a sudden they're going to be like, surprise, and it's going to be painful. It's going to hurt a lot, and I don't want to play that. So there we go. This is the other part of the Kickstarter trailer. So yeah, I'm just gonna knock the volume down quickly because I can't hear myself think when it's that loud. And then I'll turn it back up for you guys. There we go. Yeah, they had to change it to make it fun. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, no, it's sorry, it's just the music that I'm playing, not the video. I'm not playing the video. I'm just playing the music. Chill. This is what the screen looks like. It's just my desktop. Stop shouting at me. Jesus. We'll have a look at the trailer if people want. Do people want to see the old Kickstarter just to see how far we've come? Is that what people want to see? We can do that. I do that just for you guys because I'm nice like that. Just for you guys, I'll find it. Stand by. Oh, bloody hell. It's probably be the IGN one because the Star Citizen. Let's have a look. 2012. Is that the one? Nope. That's the weird one with the... Here we go. So, I'll take you across now. Stand by. Just going to get everything set up. So the volume's there. I don't get shouted at. Everything will be good. It'll all be woosah and all that sort of stuff. Stop shouting. Yeah, exactly that. Stop shouting at me! So, this is what the original Star Citizen trailer looked like. I can't make that go away. That's the video on YouTube. So that bit at the bottom, unfortunately, this person. Should I find a better version, or is that alright? Is that distracting for people? Hey, Sangrober. This is what the original Bengal looked like back in 2012. I'll see if I can find it, would you? That sounds interesting. Yeah, it is. And you'll notice from this, there are scenes that actually appear in the Squadron 42 gameplay demo from 2024, like the two people running to their ship, that sort of stuff, that are copied directly from this as that Easter eggs for those of us that remember the trailer, which is a nice touch. You can see Chris is very much a fan of the drums. You don't get so much get the bagpipes here, but you get the like the military style drums and that. Because you saw that in the trailer. That was in there. That scene with them hiding behind the asteroids. I think it was in Citizen Contract. It's like, I know that one. You just, sorry, you're hearing all his desktop noises because this is how he recorded it. Silly Billy. Is it? Crikey. Good call, Peter. Welcome in, by the way. This is the bit that's really cool when he gets in here and the screens flick out. We haven't seen this since this, I don't think. So he actually programs it on it. Like, as you change things, he was, you know, your pilot is supposed to change stuff on the screens. Yeah, my person is going to see a lot of action in tactical fleet ops. Or tactical fleet battles, whatever it's called. This bit, that's really cool. Kind of adjusting stuff on the screens, and then they fold away. Still a very nice touch. And then this. Just look how far we've come. Pew pew. You can almost hear it, right? Pew pew pew. Yeah, so there are like 5 spots, so you can have ready to react fighters without compromising the internal integrity. It's a really nice touch. It's a really nice touch. I tell you what, Sangroper, the moment I can reserve it, and it is reserved, I'll tell you what my purse is called. It's a deal. I saw this in 2013. I'll tell you the story in a bit. And it might be quite good fun at some point to kind of look at the what do you call it? To look at some of the trailers where you have those moments, because that explosion moment, I don't even remember the Squadron 42 trailer that we had about 7 years ago, the one with Bishop in it and all that sort of stuff. Right at the end, you see them fly down and there's the explosion and the logo comes out again. It was basically an homage to that, right? But yeah, as I said before, I'm just going to scroll down. It still says launches 2026. And I think that's the best thing we can go on. Like I said, my gut feeling is if they were going to change the release date, they would have done it last year, because it would have still been 2025. And we were like, hey, we're not releasing next year, we're going to do it the year afterwards. That's my feeling. But yeah, I mean, the first time, right, that I saw that Kickstarter video was it was 2013. I not long started my job as manager of a Games Workshop store in Birmingham, right? The Games Workshop store in Birmingham. And we had a sales terminal, right? So I remember coming in, it was about half an hour before the training started on a Thursday. So we were all in, there's 3 of us. And I remember just going to the terminal and going, oh my God, you've got to see this, and showing the guys. And sorry, GW, but I printed all the Kickstarter goals out. And I remember watching those Kickstarter goals count down. I remember watching them complete and being amazed at how quickly they were completing Kickstarter goals. So that's when I saw it. I didn't back to 2017, but I saw it then. And it was like, this is just incredible. And then I just went and consumed every single bit of information that I could about Star Citizen. And then as so many things happened, I kind of sat away and I did other things, and then I came back to it. Once there was the hangar module, I kind of had a look and went, this isn't kind of for me at the moment. And then they released, and then we had the PU, and I came in when, we had the space stuff, and there wasn't, I don't think there were planets, or there was a couple of moons for us to go around. And then everything else started coming in, and it just got better and better and better. But yeah, so, yeah. Could also use the pad on top, quick refuel re-on. Yeah, exactly that. Look at the year they originally expected to be done by the Kickstarter. I'm not looking. Do you have a prediction for when 1.0 release? Carson asking all the easy questions, mate. So I'm going to say this, and I thought I was going to get a lot of pushback when I said this on the captain's table, and I was amazed, actually, I didn't. But I've been saying this for years. We're not getting it before 2030. I don't care what papers say. There was that interview in a French-Canadian paper that said they're hoping to get it out in 2027 or 2028, but they don't attribute who said that. They don't attribute any of the talk around it. They just said, hey, they're trying to get Star Citizen out in 2027 or 2028. And all you've got to do is look at all the gameplay loops that we don't have in the game, divide that by the number of years left, i.e. 2, and then ask yourself if it's realistic to expect whatever it is, 18, 19, maybe 14 gameplay loops a year to come in on top of Maelstrom base building, ship to ship docking, crafting, data running. The only thing that doesn't seem to be on their 1.0 roadmap is science and research. Although there's a guild, if you actually look at the gameplay loops they have, there's very few. It's basically things like what we have at the moment: deploy probes, retrieve probes, that sort of stuff. There's just so much stuff they need to implement. Even by 2030, it's a big ask. So yeah, that's where we go. I saw both Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous to back the wrong game. Well, someone would say that was the right game, right? Because at least you got a game to play in. So there's that. My prediction is 2029-2030 since Manchester sitcoms is casting. I think 2030 is still being a bit generous with what they have to do, and any problems about to create. Yeah, that's why I said not before. I won't be drawn on any further than that. I think it's if it took another 7 or 8 years from now, I don't think I would be surprised. Put it that way. But that being said, there's so much stuff now to recommend it. The content that they're putting out, for me, hands down, my highlight of 2025 for the Star Citizen was ASD. ASD just blew me away. Who knew Star Citizen was a horror game? The storytelling was incredible. The locations were creepy as sin. That reveal of the dude on the table. I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't been in there, but there's that. Yeah, so I mean, this is probably a good time to talk about it, I guess. The key thing here is let's talk about this is a really good way to spend the last 15 minutes, right? Because this is really fucking important with Star Citizen. Let's talk about 1.0, what 1.0 is, right? 1.0 is a moment in time. It changes actually very little, right? Generally speaking, there is very little that changes with Star Citizen 1.0. Okay, there are specific things that change, but it's people talk about it as a release, right? It's not a release, right? It's where they consider it released, and this is important for one key thing, right? What we know to understand as release is once it's released, everything changes from development. That's not happening with Star Citizen. Star Citizen is going to continue to be developed. They've said, they reaffirmed this 2 years ago. I think they might have reaffirmed it last year as well. There is no Star Citizen 2.0. Star Citizen will be Star Citizen as long as CIG exists, or as long as the game is viable to run. Right? That's it. And that will be it. So they're going to continue with patches. They're going to continue to add content. They're going to continue to iterate. We will be up to, I am sure, tier 27 of Planet Tech at some point. Right? We're going to get to ridiculous levels. They're going to get to crazy kind of ridiculous tech. There's going to be lava planets. There's going to be water planets. There's going to be planets with the trees where you've got to land in certain places. It's going to be bonkers, right? They're going to get to the point where lots of the major landing zone is actually inhabitable and walk around, and there'll be missions entirely within that area. There'll be combat zones within major landing zones and that sort of stuff where you'll actually go and draw your weapon, and it'll be lawless areas, and that, or the slums, or whatever they're going to call it, right? Or for Hurston, just Lawville. Like, as long as you're shooting anyone that's not Hurston Dynamics aren't going to give a crap, right? Because bad guys. But there's that. So the key thing, I think, with release is he actually says this, and I'm going to find the video, right? Because he does good old what's his name? Good old Rich Tyra does such a better job than I do talking about this. So give me a second. You're probably going to hear stuff that you
center of the
well, that was loud. So let's have a look. So here we go. Right, this is kind of key.
Before we get stuck into Star Citizen 1.0, I think I need to clarify a few things. Firstly, what about 4.0? Where does that fit in? Well, 4.0 is the patch that contains server meshing and pyro.
We know all this.
And fundamentally, it's an alpha development patch, which means it's adding further tech, features, and content to our alpha version of the game. Today, though, is beyond 4.0, all the way to 1.0. And the big difference is that 1.0 is the full release of the game. OK, so what does that mean? How will it be different to a normal patch? Well, firstly, let's look at the 1. The 1 means we're committing to higher base performance and minimal bugs. No longer will we reference that the game is in development. This will be a fully released and polished experience. It means fully rounded gameplay loops, from new player experience to story missions and endgame content. And crucially, it means no more resets between patches. It's a true persistent universe. So if that's the 1...
Right. So, and people will go, Badges, you just said it isn't a full release. No, because he's about to explain why, right? But improved performance, polished experience, i.e. what they release per patch will be of a much higher quality of what we're getting now, right? Gameplay loops won't come in at tier 0, be like, well, yeah, it's going to in the future sometime, maybe, we don't know. When they implement something, it's going to be far more complete. There's going to be supporting missions. All the tools are going to be there. The whole thing. It won't be like, hey, we got some hull scraping, and then, hey, we got some hull scraping, and then we got crunching, and then we got removing a little bit of components, and we'll get siphoning like much later down the line. It will be, hey, here's salvage, and that will be that, right? So, of course, they'll continue to iterate on it, but it won't be the like kind of bite-sized stuff that we've got. Here's the important bit. Here's the bit. People get to that point and go, oh, game's released, it'll be finished. And oh my god, it's not coming in at 1.0 and this is the end of the world. This is the really important bit to remember and to be able to quote when other people are talking bollocks, basically.
What about the .0? Well, it's just as important. It means we're still committed to continued development, with new content and features being planned post 1.0. But those features will no longer be tier 0. We'll be committing to a higher benchmark of quality for each patch, and most importantly, it's a moment in time. If there is a content, feature, or star system that we've mentioned in the past that is not in 1.0, it just means it will come later.
I can't paraphrase that more effectively than what Rich said. They spent a lot of time on that 1 minute of dialogue. They absolutely spent a lot of time. The efficiency and the clarity that they have, they couldn't have used they couldn't have used fewer words, and they couldn't have got it much clearer. Right, it's incredible, because I know, because I tried to break this down for a video and I can't do it. I can't find any kind of efficiency or whatever, right? And this is the important thing. So 1.0, the counter keeps going. What they're saying, after 1.0, no more tier 0. Everything will come out higher quality. Freight elevators is a really good example of this. They'll expect things like freight elevators to work much more consistently to a much higher standard than we've seen in the past. And boy, oh boy, have we seen that in the past, right? So someone said, and I've lost the comment, I think. I apologise. Someone basically said that it'll always be in development. There we go. Single track. It totally makes sense to never actually declare it finished. It makes too much money in development. They're going to keep adding to it. Because the minute they stop, you'll get new players, of course, but old players will go because they'll be like, hey, I've done everything I want. There's nothing coming that excites me. I'm going to go do other things, right? So that's that. Like you said, it's just a moment in time. 1.0 doesn't signal any changes other than higher quality benchmark, no more tier 0, and development will continue. Good night, Rusty. Good to see you, buddy. Take it easy, my friend. So there's that, right? So that's the point there, in that that's what they're saying, right? At 1.0, performance will be much better. The experience will be much more polished. Things will be finished. We won't just get these piecemeal kind of, hey, we got this stuff, like there are no, like the mining and stuff. There have been no kind of consistent standard mobiGlas missions like there have been if you're a fighter pilot or, an FPS player. Mining, it's just a case of go do what you want. And some people are going to enjoy that, and that's fine, but they can do both, right? Because ASD, if you, as long as you know where you're going, the only reason now, once you've completed it, to take the missions is, you earn a little bit more credits while you're doing it, and is to actually get the marker for a site to go to. The paths, Hathor, you don't need the missions. There is no mission. You just go and do it as you want, and you do as much or as little as you want. So FPS already has both sides. You've got the missions, come up in your mobiGlas, go and do it, canned content, and then you go Hathor, do what you want. Other people can rock up. If you go to Hathor and there's no one there and no one's been there for a while, that's a very different experience to you get there, it's been raided, the NPCs are already alerted, and then all of a sudden other players turn up. Two incredibly different FPS experiences from just visiting a location at different times of the day. So there's that, right? So yeah, like as the location would release with all its puzzles and the quest line working, exactly that. And then subsequent patches ideally wouldn't break, like the door code thing, because that happened for a while. To get into the Hyperion lab in Site B, the door code wouldn't actually work, despite the fact it worked initially. So they broke something. Like at the moment, the freight elevators, we've got freight elevators working, generally speaking, at most locations, but the logistics places, it's not working for some reason, because who the fuck knows why. So that's it. That's what 1.0 does. And then, kind of going through this, there's loads of stuff that they talk about. They talk about the story mission and everything else, right? But this is kind of the key bit here, is they've got the guilds breaking down. So industrial gameplay, if you like. Repair technician, we kind of have. Breakdown engineer, we kind of have. Salvager, most of it. Fuel gatherer, no, that's not in at the minute. Yeah, you've got scoops, but you can't help anyone else out with it. Miner, yep. Builder, nope. Refiner, nope. Crafter, nope. Right, so even one of the most kind of fleshed out gameplay loops in the game at the moment is not kind of there yet. And I'm gonna see if I can find. Here we go. Mercenary Guild. There we go. So I'll keep talking, right? Here we go. So this is lawful combat. And look at what's in here. So yeah, so it's not gathering though, that's commodity trading, needles, right? Oh, needless, right? Is it possible so you can buy fuel for your pods and then sell it to players, but it's not exactly gatherer. So they're going to have fuel scoops and stuff that you can basically go out and kind of gather up hydrogen by going through hydrogen clouds and stuff. It's not in yet. That's for 1.0, but we're nowhere near it. It hasn't been mentioned. So if we look at here, investigate VIP. Well, we've got some investigate gameplay, so I guess you could say we can kind of do this. Although what? Capture VIP? No, not really. Not unless you're going to knock them out and move them around. But we've got no handcuffs. We can't move NPCs around particularly easily at the moment. Certainly not live ones. Right? So capture? No, can't really do that. Kill VIP? Sure. Location mapping? FPS? Nope, don't have that. So that's a loop that we don't have. Scan area? FPS? Don't have that. Scan objects? FPS? Don't have that. Disable objects? Sure, shoot it. Why not? Extract objects? Sure, we can tractor beam stuff out of, like components and stuff. So you could argue that that's there. Or it's as simple as, going and putting something in your backpack like a loot. It doesn't have to be, removing a physical entity and running around with a tractor beam like a component. It can just be, oh look, there's the data pad. Put the data pad in your backpack, and that exists. Investigate. Yes, we have an investigate mission, or we had. PI wanted, although it's broken at the moment. Access data. I'm not entirely sure what access data and investigate are different. But you could argue again, if all you're doing is going up to something and reading a screen or hitting something on your mobiGlas and it extracts like we do at ASD, then I guess that's in. Rescue VIP? Possibly. It's certainly going to come in with tactical fleet battles and so on and so forth. I won't insult your intelligence by reading the whole thing out to you, right? But you see what I mean there. Even the most fleshed out gameplay loop in the game, we can't do all of that. This is not in. So that's how far away we are. And then you've got the kind of illegal stuff, which has got more things. You know, craft a chemical. Okay, you're just crafting drugs. So switch one set of ingredients for another. Bribe and intimidate. Do we have the ability to do that? No, although you could argue that could just be the case of like dropping off a ransom note or pointing a gun at someone or, you know, meleeing them a couple of times to make them compliant. So I guess you could kind of do that, but you can't intimidate anyone in the game at the minute. So they need to add something. Arson? Possibly. Arguably, although also possibly not. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in here that still isn't implemented. We are a long, long way from 1.0. This is what I meant about science. So basic researcher, retrieve and research for Ryari. So we've got that at the moment. That's what the collection missions are, right? Go kill a bunch of Marikhorns, hand them in at Ryari. Arguably, that's what that's doing. Rescue person, firefighting, you kind of. Capture animals, collect animal parts, hunt animals. So we haven't got capture, but we've got everything else there. Scan area, location mapping. You see there's no real science there at all for the Science Guild. So science not in 1.0. Which is why, well, partly why Endeavour won't be 1.0. Endeavour's also massively complicated, right? But this is the reasonable stuff. Rockbreaker looks to be available through 2 different missions. You pay a premium for exclusive access or free open world access. Interested to hear your thoughts knowing how much you love Hathor. Yeah. I think I like Hathor up to the point where I've got to activate the laser. Oh. Then I don't like it so much. For a couple of reasons, really. The bit that I don't like about Hathor is that someone can sit and watch you do it, right? I can put someone on a hilltop in shadow on foot. And as long as oxypens are working, they can stay there as long as they want, right? And they can just watch you. And they can watch you do one location, and then they can jump on a dragonfly and go to the next location and watch you do that, and then go to the next location and watch you do that. And even if they lose track of you, they'll watch the laser fire. And then when the laser fires and you come down and land, they call their mates in who have got an Idris with a laser or a railgun in front. And they come down and they basically delete whatever ships and vehicles that you've got around the mouth of that cavern. And there's nothing you can do about it because you're in the cavern mining the stuff. And then they either just fill the hole full of torpedoes, railgun shots, grenades, sit at the top, camp the hell out of you, kill everyone in there, nick all the loot that you picked up on your body, and then nick all the mining materials and leave. So you can go all the way through Hathor, lose everything because your ship's been destroyed, and then lose everything that was on you because you've been killed and looted. And someone else, by sitting doing nothing, watching you do it all, gets all of the reward. That I don't like when you're on foot. It's kind of different with piracy in space, right? But just being able to watch people do that is I think is a bit shitty, right? Especially when you can do that at 2 locations on the same moon. You could do that at, is it Aberdeen and Daymar? So, you know, you can have one at each of the locations on one moon, watching both locations, and just sat there watching, waiting for the laser to fire. They can be anywhere as long as you can see the laser fire. You can go, well, they've just done it. And then you go and watch and you go, yeah, the ships are landed now. And the only way to counter that is what? Another Idris? It doesn't... I don't like that idea. I like that they're PvPs, but I think there needs to be kind of a payoff for people part way through. you know, like you can do part 1 of Stormbreaker, the data centers and that. You can do that and come away from it, and you've got like some of the key cards and stuff, and you can kind of do that a bunch of times without ever going to the main PvP site. So that's a really nice. And there's like 10 places on the planet where you can go and get the key cards and stuff and do the data center hack to get what you need to go and do the second part of Stormbreaker. So you can do that, come away with rewards, and you haven't done the whole event. You've done partial. You get rewards for the hard work. I don't like people sitting and putting in a couple of hours to be pipped at the post by people who are sat there going, "Why would we do that? Let's just let someone else do it." It's a bit shitty. Do you know what I mean? And pirates are going, no, that's pirate gameplay. Okay, fine, right? The equivalent for piracy that I'm talking about is you've stolen someone's rare ship full of rare components. You land it in your hangar, right? They've got a warranty. They get to the terminal before you and register your ship, your stolen ship, as their own, having done nothing. They just sit there, wait for you to get to the hand-in part and steal it at the 11th hour. It's the same thing. It's a shit ton of effort, and someone just sits there. It's exit camping in Tarkov is what it is. So yeah, that's the shit I hate. So, you know, I would prefer things like, you know, Hathor ASD, that where you have that chance of encountering other people, but it's not always going to happen, and there are other ways to get out. You can choose to go. Your ship's in a hangar. You have a local inventory, so you can store stuff between runs. So even if you die and you lose like the big thing, you pick up a piece of ASD armor or something in ASD, and you get killed and it's stolen, whatever else you picked up and you've taken the time to kind of store is still yours. That stuff I like, because you're minimizing how much risk you're exposing yourself to. With Hathor, it's massive risk with very little chance to get stuff out, which is why I do loads of Hathor up to, but not including firing the laser. But yeah, still having that hope, and there'll be council missings for raiding distribution centers. I'm sure there will be. I really hope there will be. Hopefully, Widget, that answered your question. Nita says, I have a feel location mapping and exploration is the thing that the hologlobe is for in ships that have it. Yeah, I think that the hologlobe for in the larger ships is like a fleet command thing. It's like the fleet command terminal, like the mapping terminal in the Carrack. It's extremely shitty, and part of the reason some PMC orgs have gotten a lot of business doing security for groups running Hathor. Let smaller groups have some pieces of mind. Yeah, exactly that. And look, I mean, don't get me wrong, we've done it, right? But we didn't sit and camp it. We rocked up to Hathor, and someone reported seeing ships around the hole, and the hole open, right? And we got there, and there were a couple of people, and we killed them, and we nicked all the stuff, right? That still sucks for them, but, you know, I don't mind doing that bit, because it was like, I didn't sit here watching, this was a completely chance encounter. You know, in the same way that someone could sit right at the exit of ASD, make sure that they don't, you know, disconnect for inactivity, but then just wait there, and then when they hear people running down the corridor, they pop out, kill everyone, steal all the loot, run away. It's just shit. I agree with the sentence. I think the skill in managing all that extra risk in my modes cover to split them, so long as the payoff for the rock paper. Yes. So for a lot of it, for the PvP things, maybe that's more acceptable, right, to a lot of people, and I understand that. I think for things like Rockbreaker, maybe, where the focus of it, you know, it's about getting the materials. Because the other thing I find is you've got to do Stormbreaker to do some of the Wicklow stuff. You've got to do Hathor to do some of the Wicklow stuff, because you need it. So for things that are not necessarily, you know, PvP focused rewards. So it's like, hey, you will do PvP, or you won't get stuff from Wicklow. End of chat. That's just a bit pants. I think a skill in managing all that extra risk, clever to split them as long as the payoff for the PvP rock breaker rewards reward the extra risk. Yeah, exactly that. It's things like Siege of Orison, right? It takes away from the experience when you can't get out of the shuttle because someone's throwing, you know, grenade rounds through it. It's just, yeah, great. Thanks for that. Fun gameplay. Siege of Origin going instanced is great. I don't see there being a negative to it being instanced. Going in and experiencing that on a cleaner server where it's not competing for wider resources when it's instanced and all that sort of stuff, chef's kiss. Siege of Origin, I think, is going to be an absolute highlight when that comes. And I'm hoping it's this year. Did they say it was this year? I'm hoping it is anyway. So there you go. Speaking of people doing messed up actions, reminds me of Space Cutlet. I asked one question in his chat before and was instantly banned. One of those bad eggs. Yeah. He hunts players all. Oh, were you in the rock? Is that what happened there? But yes. So there's that. That's kind of where we are with all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think there's guys. What I want to come away with this is there's a lot I think to be positive about in 2026. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we can get a lot of content. It'll be really interesting to see how things change with the new release schedule and all that sort of stuff. And the bit I just kind of want to, make kind of abundantly clear to everyone is I am going to this year, I think, try and be positive for the launch of Squadron 42. Because if not now, when? Right? If you're not going to be positive, if you're not going to be positive about it now, I mean, you're kind of running out of time, right? So yeah, I'm going to give it a go, and if I'm disappointed, then I'm disappointed. But I'm hoping CIG have learnt their lesson, and actually last year, I'm trying to think of what slippage we had last year. Whatever it is, the fact that I'm struggling to remember means that we're in a lot better place. What release date did they say they were going to go for, and then they subsequently slipped in terms of Star Citizen. Right. So that's where I go with that. But yeah, and obviously, of course, what I'm looking to do is become more consistent with content, get more content out for you guys. I want to look a little bit closer at the launch of Star Citizen, so that's one of the videos that I have planned. There will obviously also be the Perseus military review. Once things have calmed down and I can actually have a look at it, and they've improved some of the frame rate issues around it, because under it, the frame rate's really bad right now. So I'm hoping to get a lot more kind of smoother footage and stuff, talk about it from the military perspective in very much the same way as Morph talks from a kind of architect's perspective. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to being able to do that with you guys and giving that a go as well, and see what you all think about it. I've put some bits together for it as well. There's the history side of it. We talk about the origins of the Perseus, the design concept, how it's come about again, being an old ship rather than a new one. And I really like it, and I've tried it with a couple of people in Discord, and they are very, very excited as well. So, with any luck, that'll be it. Squadron 42 is the game I'm looking forward to this year, says Fan Fantasy. Exactly that. I was a warfare officer in the Royal Navy. Lieutenant. So yeah, if we don't get base building this year, then why did they show it to us 2 years ago? Well, there's that, but they did say that it was early doors and that work had only just started. That was going to be the big reveal, right? But there we go. So yeah, lots, I think, to be positive about this year. And I'm looking forward to going and finding it out and being excited, impressed, disappointed, whatever emotions come out of Star Citizen and CIG this year. And hopefully I get to start saying and Squadron 42. I'm going to have my fingers crossed for there's that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see ships in the military POV. Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping so. So an officer reviews. So I'm going to be very careful. I don't want to offend Morph or feel like I'm leeching his. I have a working title. It's ready for inspection. So yeah, we'll give that a go. And there'll be all sorts of nautical references and stuff. So that's what we've got planned. That's what I've got planned this year. That's what I hope CIG do this year. And it's always fun to have a little bit of a look back at what CIG think. Quick end of the poll then. How many people would be happy with CitizenCon becoming a direct again for this year and for a little while whilst they focus on development? 92% of people said yes. 8% of people said no. So it looks like 3 people. 3 people, was that about right? Yeah, 3 people said no. Everyone else said yes, so there we go. Julio Reyes, hello. Looking forward to this. I'm pleased, mate. I'm looking forward to get it out to you guys and see what you think. I will do. I will let everyone know when it's coming. It won't be a sudden surprise up, so you guys can know and know to look out for it. And that is everything I've got time for this evening. I'm back to work tomorrow, so I'm going to have to get my head down like a good little boy. You've been watching Drinkers with Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'll see you soon.